Welcome to From Bozrah with Love, the hottest new podcast, the funniest damn stories, with your host, David Forday. Get ready to laugh, get ready to cry, but get ready, because this is From Bozrah with Love.
Hey everybody, and welcome to the show. My name is Dave Forday, and this is From Bozrah with Love. And on today's show, I am joined by a very, very funny comedian. JT Tomlinson is here to talk a little about what he's got going on. JT, thanks for being on the show.
Thank you for having me, Dave. Great to be here.
Absolutely. I'll jump right into it. How did you get started in comedy?
Yeah, actually, it kind of goes all the way back when I was 13 years old, I think. My mom enrolled me in a comedy class at the Jewish Community Center in Santa Barbara, which is where I grew up. And I'm not Jewish, which I only say that because I'm not sure how I ended up there. My mom's not Jewish, nobody in my family. And I took a couple classes from this lady who would kind of teach like comedy to kids and like teenagers, and I enjoyed it a lot. And we went up and did our show, and I forgot like 3/4 of the shit that I was gonna say, and I hated it. And I was like, never again. Even though I knew I kind of liked it, but I had never forgotten. Like I grew up playing music and stuff like that, and I had never forgotten. You know, sometimes you break a string or you fuck up a lyric.
Sure, yeah.
But I literally forgot at least 75% of the jokes I was supposed to tell, and the audience probably didn't know. But I was like, never again. A few years later, when I went off to college, actually, really in high school, I was a good student, but I would only raise my hand just to say funny shit.
Yeah.
And all my teachers were like, please try comedy in college. Just when you get there, just ask them, where do I go? Because this can't all have been for nothing. We've been calling on you to hear your jokes, but it's annoying. Just go off. So I did, and I finally, when I was in college, I did a couple. I met this dude, and I just was on a roll. Everything I was saying was like hilarious. You get in these grooves, and it's like amazing.
Yeah.
And so he was like, I know a friend who's doing a show if you want to like write some jokes. And I was like, that's the only thing I want to do. And I did it. And he had me do 2 5-minute sets, and the first one was great, and the second one I totally bombed. But I was very encouraged, and it just kind of went from there.
Awesome. So your comedic style is based on your own sort of...
Yeah, kind of. I mean, I had a lot of influences. Louis C.K., you have to say it if it's true.
Yes.
Yeah, which can be a point of contention, and I'm not really, my mind is not really made up in terms of the artist thing. I think that it's a spectrum. There are some people where, I'm not going to listen to them ever again. And then there are some people where, like, Louis, it's not like the stuff that came out. I was like, oh, screw that. I support him, all the time. But he was a huge influence on me growing up before I knew about any of that stuff.
He's one of the best comics out there.
Totally. And I mean, even if he's not now, he certainly was for a while.
Yeah.
But there was a period where I didn't acknowledge that, I think, as much. And that's tough because that was big part of my comedic identity, I think, coming up, was this is my idol. This is who I want to be. And also to kind of have that sort of taken down in a very public way can be tough. But he was a big influence. Norm Macdonald.
Yeah, absolutely.
Love those dudes.
So when you're coming up with new material, do you still watch some of these guys and get some influence from that?
Yeah, that's the main way I get new materials. I just watch their shit and I just do those jokes. I'm just kidding. No, I
twist it a little bit.
I mean, sometimes it definitely has an influence because, like, if you listen to a comic a lot, you kind of hear them in your head a little bit. And so if I'm writing a joke, or even if I'm telling a joke that I've already written and I've been listening to a particular comedian a lot lately, I'll kind of redo it in their style and in their voice. And especially if I'm coming up with something new. And it is a good benchmark to have. Like, is this how this person would tell that joke? Yeah. Because when you watch somebody who's that professional, I'm not just talking about Louis, but it could be anybody who's, on Netflix or Comedy Central, or who has fully made it.
Yeah.
You see it, and it helps you trim the fat off it. You can get off the extra words that don't need to be part of the joke.
Yeah.
And it definitely helps. And sometimes you do that, and you're like, oh, I have this 5-minute bit. And you trim it down, and you're like, this is 1 minute and 15 seconds. What am I doing?
Is that one of the biggest challenges as being a comedian, is like knowing how much time you have and then like having to work within those confines?
No, not so much. You mean like during a set?
Yeah.
No, not really.
Before the bell starts ringing?
Not really. Well, yeah, they turn on a light like in the back of the room. They'll show you that'll have like a preset. You have a preset number of minutes left.
Got it.
Probably the biggest challenge, at least with writing, is knowing. Well, first of all, it's just writing in general. Yeah. The biggest challenge with writing is sitting down and fucking writing.
Doing it.
Oh my God, it's so hard because you have a million other things you want to do in your life. Even if you're passionate about writing. Yeah. I love writing.
Yeah.
And it's still so hard for me to write.
Yeah.
And I still feel so proud of myself when I write and when I do it, like, oh my God, on back-to-back days. Are you kidding me?
Yes. Yeah.
Because it's easy to think about jokes when you're driving in the car. Or
Is
if
it?
you're, oh yeah, totally. Because you're sitting in traffic, you're bored, you don't want to be there.
Yeah. Yeah.
But when you're sitting at home and you could do anything,
Yes.
to choose to devote your full brain to jokes, which is when you're going to come up with your best stuff because you're using all of your brain power.
Yeah.
Is difficult. But then once you get into the writing process, for me at least, the most difficult part becomes, how do I know when I'm done? You know what I mean? How do I know exactly which parts of this are funny and which ones aren't?
Right.
And it can be a hard thing to figure out by yourself.
Yeah.
You know?
That's the thing that artists, you have to know is when to put the paintbrush down.
Totally. And that's, I mean, the thing about comedy and the thing about me with comedy is I'm pretty much only getting honest feedback about that kind of stuff. You know what I mean? I'm not, you go see Chris Rock, even if he's not that funny, people will laugh because he's Chris Rock and they're excited.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying he's not funny, he's still hilarious.
Sure.
But even if he has an off night, he might not even know it.
No,
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
At least by the reactions he's getting. But for me, if I bomb, nobody's laughing. You know what I mean? They're just not laughing.
So are you turning like a television on when you're trying to get some material? I mean, I've never really sat down and wrote anything, to be honest.
No, the way that I write is in complete silence.
Yeah.
I sit down in front of the computer and I even if it's totally silent, I'll put like noise canceling headphones on.
It's just got to be you and your brain.
It got to be me and my brain, nothing else. I dim the other lights. There can't be something brighter than my computer that's in my field of vision.
Do you get pissed off if like the phone rings at a moment like this, or is that one of the challenges that happens?
I think it's just one of the challenges. I don't know that I would say I get pissed off, but it is one of the challenges. Or my roommate comes home, and he starts flushing the toilet or closing the microwave and shit like that.
Yeah.
It can be tough, but that's the thing. I don't I live with somebody else. That's life. So it's just carving out the time to do it. And and also sometimes you do it and it's not successful. I mean, probably at least half of the time.
Right.
So sitting down to do that and knowing, okay, I might not get any return from this. Yeah. It's very process oriented.
Do you have a job outside of doing comedy, or is comedy your full-time thing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have a day job up in a restaurant up in LA, which I'm only doing, I think, 3 days a week now.
Do you find any material working within the restaurant that you can take with you?
Sometimes I find that most of the stuff that I think is funny in the restaurant is only funny to my coworkers and the other waiters, and we'll talk shit about like people who come in.
Yeah.
But it's kind of thing, if I try to do it on stage, it probably wouldn't make sense unless I wanted to get really angry, which is not really my style.
No, you don't come across like that.
But it is, I do have some people, like I'll take tables and sometimes it will emerge. I don't tell them I'm a comedian. Yeah. But they'll get it out of me. Like it'll emerge. I'm not going around advertising that.
Yeah.
Because then, that's people will go, oh, tell us a joke or blah, blah, blah. Or they'll say to me, and this is why I bring this up, they'll say, oh, are you going to use us in your
bit?
In your set?
No.
Yeah, and they never say set or bit. They say, are you going to use us in your, or they say like act or whatever, or in your sketch? And I'm like, these are not the words, lady. But I'm like, why the fuck would I use you in you did nothing of value.
Yeah.
You wanted fries instead of salad.
Yeah.
That means nothing.
Yeah, you can't tell them.
I'm not going to go up on stage and go, so table 20 the other day, you're not going to believe what these motherfuckers did.
Yeah, you catch a lawsuit.
Unbelievable. Maybe. And when they ask me that, I go, like I just don't answer it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, do your coworkers come out and support you, and they know that you?
Some of them do.
Yeah.
A lot of them will tell me like, "Hey, I'd love to come see you," and then they don't. But they have busy lives. But sometimes they do, and that's sick. That means a lot to me.
I bet.
Yeah, that's really cool. And coworkers, friends, just anybody I know that wants to come to a show.
Yeah,
that's sick because they don't have to do that. And I know that what we're providing is entertainment and it has value.
Yeah.
But you don't always get to do that.
Yeah.
And I'll see friends that I haven't seen in years. They'll just get the feeling they want to come out to a show.
Yeah.
And they will.
And you value their feedback at the same time.
Big time.
More so, maybe.
Because some of them, especially like friends I had in college, they might not have seen me since then. When I was just getting started, but compared to now, I fucking sucked.
Yeah.
So
a lot of bombing.
I want to know what they think, and not so much a lot of bombing. When I was taking classes, at USC, there were like even stand-up comedy classes up there.
Oh.
And I was the only person who had any experience. Like I'd done those couple shows when I was 18, and even like I said, being a musician, and I did some public speaking in high school.
Yeah.
I was the only one who had any experience, and so that made me the best.
Yeah.
Just because nobody else had ever done it before.
Right.
And so they all kind of told me I was the best, at least just like in the class. And that was a lot of encouragement for me to keep going.
Confidence.
Totally.
Yeah.
Big fish in a small pond.
Yeah.
In a small, inexperienced pond of like mostly theater kids, I think.
Yeah.
Who did stand up and maybe they had fun and maybe they were good at it, but they're probably not doing it anymore. You know what I mean? Because they're pursuing acting or whatever.
So what would be your advice to someone who's starting out in something like this?
I mean, just write all the time. Just write and just get up on stage as much as you can. I mean, you got to go to mics. That's the thing. And mics suck.
Yeah.
But I still go to mics because you have to.
Yeah.
And that's the thing about mics is for years I looked at it as like a challenge, or not a challenge, but just like a burden.
Yeah.
And you have to go sit there in a room with 25 other people who don't want to talk to you. And you're going to sit there for 2.5 hours.
Really?
Yeah. I
you guys
mean,
don't all just like talk with each other? And,
no,
and
you'd be
enjoy
surprised.
it?
I mean, sometimes you do now. Now that happens because I've been doing it long enough to where I could, if I probably walked into a mic, I probably would know at least one person.
Yeah.
And I could just sit there with them.
And when you say mic, for everybody at home,
Sure.
it means open mic.
An open mic. Yeah. So what an open mic is it's elective. You don't get booked on an open mic. You show up there, and it's just basically a place for comedians to try out new material. Most of the time, there isn't an audience. I mean, there's people sitting in the chairs, but that's just the other comics.
Right.
And so that's a hard audience. Even if they were paying attention the whole time, that's already a hard audience because they've heard a lot of stuff before.
Yeah.
But also, they're probably just thinking about their own jokes,
Yep.
how they're going to do, or how they just did.
Yeah.
Or they're thinking about how much they hate you and want to kill you. At least sometimes that's how it feels. So yeah, you got to do that. But I've gotten to the point where that feels like a challenge to me.
Yeah.
And it's like, if I can do well in these shitty rooms full of comics, I don't even want to call them rooms because they're not shows. They're just mics. If you can do well in those rooms, that means you got some good stuff going.
Yeah.
So that would be my advice, is just, you just got to tough it through that and just write all the time and go figure out who you are and what your comedic voice is.
Well, this group of comedians that are going to be going on stage, they're not supporting you in terms of laughter. Like, are they just like, whoa, that was not that great. I could have did better.
Well,
like,
no,
what's happening to them?
at a mic, they will if they think it's funny.
It's funny, right?
If they think it's funny and if they're paying attention.
Yeah.
But those two things definitely are not a given.
Yes.
And sometimes you'll have these mics where like people sign up and they know the order they're going in, and if they're going like 20th, they'll take off for an hour and come back.
Got it.
And so there might be 8 people in there.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I don't want to think of any laughter as cheap, whether it comes at a mic or from a comic or not.
Yeah.
But definitely, it can definitely be discouraging.
Yeah.
Depending on how you see it.
Well, I see it as like you guys are a community of guys that like should be supporting each other. So it might be hard to.
Well, no, I mean it's getting that way too. But just there are so many people that just kind of come out of the woodwork, and you're like, why are you here?
Oh yeah.
And so I can see how it is. Like, for me when I was starting out, I was like, why don't they love me? But it's easy to fall into that where you're like, I'm doing this every day. I'm pursuing this. Who the fuck is this guy going to come in here and fucking take up 4 minutes of the time? They could have picked my name instead of his.
Right.
You know what I mean? So, and then you realize that it's that same system that allowed you to keep going.
So you're the host of, by the way, my first show ever he was hosting it. And he was not only the best host, he was a great comedian. So my first experience with comedy was you.
Oh yeah.
Outside of watching it on TV. And what I loved about the situation was just how everybody seemed to work really well together.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was this flow. So I guess my question is that, do you get to choose since you get to host these things? And by the way, if you guys are curious at home, Don't Tell Comedy. It's amazing. Honestly, it's one of the greatest things that's come to life for me, which Don't Tell Comedy is basically where they will, they'll have a show. They won't tell you where it's at until the day of the event. Hence the name Don't Tell Comedy. And then they'll say, hey, we got this show. Come down. You've bought tickets and you get it. You don't know who's going to be there.
Don't know who's going to be there. Not until they go on stage, really.
Yeah. Do you get to choose that? Is that a handpicked thing that you get involved with? Or
you mean the lineup?
The lineup, yeah.
Yeah, lately. So I produce shows for Don't Tell in Los Angeles, but we're based. I mean, we have shows in like over 100 cities. Mm-hmm. We do tapings usually about every month, and we'll post like videos on YouTube. But Don't Tell actually now has like over 1 million subscribers on YouTube.
It's insane,
which is huge. And I say that I'm not a part of any of that. I mean, I run shows in LA. I've been doing it since October. Don't Tell is a much bigger thing than just me. I'm a very small piece of it, but it's an amazing thing to be part of. I've gotten to the point now where I'm just starting to be able to book some of these shows, and I've seen enough comics to know more what it takes to put a good show together. But the camaraderie is there. It's a lot of fun when you're doing that because, when it's a show, it's you realize that it's not just like, okay, a 10-minute set and then another 10-minute set. You can call back to other people's stuff. You're sitting there watching them anyway, probably.
Yeah.
And it makes it more fun for the audience when it's not just like, hey, we watched 5 totally separate people And people will come up to us afterwards that don't know how any of this works, and they're like, "So do you guys all travel around in like a big double-decker bus?" I'm like, "No, what are you talking about?"
Like in every state.
Right? Yeah, exactly.
Keep driving.
Right?
We're done. Get on the bus.
Yeah, we'll be in Anaheim tomorrow. But yeah, it's an awesome thing. It's a lot of fun. It's a really cool thing to be part of.
Do you guys get on like a Zoom call with all the hosts and go, you know what, we have to have this right now?
Not really. How do you mean?
Well, just, I don't know. Like, I figured you got a lot of great hosts like you. Do you collaborate at all? Is it?
I mean, sometimes it's not so much. There's more of an administrative side of it, which I'm not really a big part of. I'm more kind of on the ground, going to venues, running shows.
Yeah.
There is more of a from the top down, kind of like overall
hierarchy.
Yeah, stuff that we want to implement with shows. But there isn't like just a general focus of like, hey, here's how we want to do our crowd work. I mean, there's kind of the general knowledge, especially, with hosting, is that your job is not so much to go up there and like do 10 minutes of material.
Yeah.
Your job is to sort of convert these people from people who have jobs and just everyday folks to now it's Friday, Saturday night.
Yeah.
Where they're ready to be entertained.
Yeah,
and
they
so
are.
Get them into that mood.
Yeah.
And so a lot of that is crowd work and, sort of, I would think of it as personalizing the show.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Because if I went up there and hosted the show, but keep in mind, like, part of my job with producing these shows is I get there early. I set up all the chairs. We bring our own PA equipment. I mean, we got to move furniture around. We're transforming spaces because it'll be, surf shops and yoga studios and gyms and just places where you don't have comedy shows. That's kind of our MO.
Right.
So I've been there early setting up all that stuff. I'm checking people in at the door. I'm showing them where to sit. And they remember me from that too.
Yeah.
So if I just go right up on stage and just start telling jokes, they're probably sitting there going, who's this guy?
Yeah.
Why is the guy from the, you know what I mean?
Yep.
And they would think that even if I've got all these crazy credits and stuff like that. So yeah, I think part of it is just getting them ready and setting the mood so that it's kind of teed up for the other comics to go out there and do their best.
You would think somebody coming on to do, somebody who's coming there on a Friday night to check this out, like you wouldn't have to really like do a whole lot because they are there to be entertained. But have you had situations where like people are just like scrunched up faces and like, well, that's not, and you're like, fuck, I gotta like, let me just get something in.
Sometimes, I mean, you definitely have your tougher rooms.
Yeah.
Where you just kind of want to get out of there. I mean, that's kind of for me a big dilemma as a host that I face is if I can sense that it's not going well, how much do I want to talk about the fact that it's not doing well?
Yeah.
Because it can be a very polarizing thing to talk about.
Yeah.
And generally, if you start to lean in on that and even like make fun of the audience,
yeah,
one of two things is going to happen. You're either going to totally win them back to where they love you.
Yeah.
Or they are going to fucking hate you probably way more than they already did, if they even did before. Maybe it's just a weird night or whatever. Yeah. Or like all 50 people there in like a polyamorous relationship and somebody cheated or what, who knows? I don't know, do they care about it? Anyways. So yeah, but that's the thing is if you lose them hard, there's 5-6 other people who got to go up after me.
Right.
For 10 minutes. Right. And they have to eat that now.
Yes.
And I just fucking ruined it for them.
Yes.
And so if I go up there and I'm like, it's not going great, but I did my best. And I talked to the folks and sure, they didn't love me. Whatever.
Yeah.
I leave room for them to still be excited and the other comics to win them back.
Right.
And so I don't really have I don't know. I don't have a set answer to that question of what the hell do you do there? But,
well, I guess it was like leaning into like, how do you deal with hecklers?
Yeah, you don't get a ton of hecklers in the traditional sense when people think of hecklers as like, boo, you suck kind of thing.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever had that.
Good.
God.
But
people don't realize, and you learn this on your first day of like, if you take a comedy class, which is that a heckle is anything that disrupts the flow of your set.
Yeah.
And it could be just a guy talking. It could be somebody's phone rings. It could be, the waiter at the club drops a glass and breaks a glass.
Yeah.
It could be, I did a show once where there was like a tent of like a restaurant, like their alfresco dining setup right behind the stage.
Yeah.
And in the middle of my host set, they started singing Happy Birthday.
No.
I mean, that's a huge heckle. That crosses over into the category of where it's just automatically funny.
Did you keep talking or did you let them finish their happy birthday?
Oh, no, I paused and I was like, what the fuck? And then I got my whole crowd of like 100 people to start singing Happy Birthday also, which was awesome.
You worked it in there.
I was very grateful that had happened. That's the kind of thing where you're like, what the fuck? And then in the middle of thinking that, you go, no, this is funny.
Yeah.
Oh, I got to jump on this. This is awesome.
Yeah.
Which is the best feeling to have because I didn't
Make it work.
I didn't deserve that. That just happened to me.
Yeah.
And the answer was so clear.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, really, the only way to deal with hecklers is to acknowledge it.
Yeah.
You're never going to deal with a heckle by not saying anything.
Yeah.
And whether it's happy birthday, whether it's a guy in the front row talking, whether it's a lady in the back row talking, somebody's phone goes off, somebody drops a glass, everybody heard it.
Yep.
And you have to acknowledge it.
Yeah.
Because if you don't, there's kind of this sort of submissive thing that happens where now that you don't have I almost think of it as like you don't have the comedic prowess to tackle that or make it funny.
Yeah.
And so you have to lean into it. Even if, and I've also found that even if what you say isn't amazing or hilarious, there's still sort of a nervous energy that will evoke some laughter.
Yeah.
Which can be enough to just keep you going.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because people are like, oh, this is off script.
Right.
Oh, that happened, and we weren't expecting it, and he definitely wasn't expecting it.
Yeah.
So,
Got it.
So, it can be a unique thing to deal with. I've never had to like kick somebody out of a show. Thank God.
Okay, that's what I was going to say.
I'm sure the day will come.
Yes.
I'm not sure what I would do, especially if I'm on stage.
Yeah.
It's one thing if another comic's up there and I'm just there as the producer standing in the back watching.
Right.
And I have to go up and be like, can you leave? I'm come close a couple times.
Yeah.
But usually people like that are with somebody else.
Right.
Who is so embarrassed.
Yes.
And they're like, come on, Mike, we're leaving.
Yeah.
So it's always some asshole named Mike. Lesson number 1 of comedy. It's always some asshole named Mike. No, that's not true. I know a bunch of Mikes who are good guys. So let's not target at any of them.
Well, had you ever been, I'm just going to take it back a little bit to Don't Tell Comedy, because that's how I know you. Did you ever go to one of those shows before you had gone to a few of them?
Totally.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And you weren't on the stage, you were in the seats.
I was watching, hanging out, even with, I just got involved with that through a couple of friends.
Yeah.
But yeah, I had gone to a couple just to sort of hang out. Because that's another thing you do as a comedian is you'll go see your friends do shows.
Yeah.
And a good friend of mine, she was producing these shows. And so I would go just hang out, didn't know anybody, would sit in the back and just kind of watch it happen.
Yeah.
And just thinking, man, this is awesome. And so yeah, I'd seen it happen, and I always thought like this is really cool because you grow up, you come up, you go to the clubs, you go to the Comedy Store, the Improv, and you see how that happens, and then you go to a Don't Tell show, and it's in like a backyard with hedges and string lights, and it looks really pretty.
Yeah,
people are having a great time.
Yeah,
and the comedians are crushing, and you're like, there's another way to do this.
Yeah,
it doesn't just have to be, I don't have to try to get past at a club in order to have stage time.
Well, do people approach you and say, could you do a private event for us? Does that happen for you guys?
That happened to me once. It hasn't happened to me, I think, on behalf of Don't Tell ever, but I think people ask him that. Actually, I did do a private event for Don't Tell up in Santa Barbara where it was like for an office party.
Oh, okay.
And it was like, I think 35 people, and it was so much fun.
Did you have to set that one up too?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I set all that stuff up. That's the kind of thing I think most comics would say no to. At least the ones I told about it.
The logistics.
Yeah, well, just like the doing because when a crowd all knows each other, they're gonna be talking. Yeah. And what I realized is I could go and try to play this, like I ended up just doing crowd work for like 15, 20 minutes. And I was just talking to them and making fun of them and trying to figure out, because first of all, I still don't know what this business was. I have no idea what they did. It was like a 3-letter acronym of nothing that even stood out to me as a job. Yeah. So that was a whole. So people like to be made fun of, though, especially in a collective setting. So that was a lot of fun. Yeah. And trying to figure out, who are the weird people in this office, things that they're not, that they might all be thinking, but they don't know. Yeah. If I can give them an outlet for that, they're gonna have a great time. Yeah. But yeah, one time a lady came up to me after a show and was like, "Hey, we're trying to put on a show at our house. Would you host it?" And I was like, "Sure." And then I never heard from her.
Oh, she never called you back?
Yeah, I never heard back from her. But whatever. I think I was busy that day anyway.
Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wasn't you getting rejected?
I'd be down. I'd totally be down. Give me stage time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't done a ton of corporate stuff. But I do know that that's a lot of ways people can get. You get paid well for doing that kind of stuff. Yeah. Yeah, I took a comedy class from a guy who does a lot of that kind of stuff.
Do comics make pretty decent money? Can they? You can if you got Netflix.
What the hell are you talking? Yeah, if you got Netflix, and that's like 20 people maybe on a good day.
Not even like $100 to come out.
Well, no, you can. You can get you can get paid $100.
Sure,
you can totally get paid $100. It depends what you're doing. Yeah. But it's hard. If you're making a living just by doing like a spot on a show, that means you're really fucking good. Yeah. That means you are succeeding with a capital succeeding. Like you made it at that point.
Yeah.
Most of the people, like I'm getting, I think, pretty close to the point where I might be making a living from like producing side. But that's a whole, I mean, that's work.
Yeah.
And I enjoy it. I find it extremely gratifying.
Yeah.
Like being able to turn a space like a surf shop into a comedy show.
Yeah.
And like a secret pop-up show. That's awesome. We put that there before where there was nothing funny. It was just clothing racks.
When do you get told, right? When do you get told that this is the space, and do you have to go in for the first time? There's not a blueprint they give you, right?
Yeah, well, it depends. Some of these spots I've done a show before. I'll even know the guy. I mean, I've been working with Don't Tell for, 7 months now.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, early on, it was kind of like, all right, here's the spot. And sometimes I might go check it out a little bit early and just kind of get the flow. Or, somebody who I was working with who would have me run the show. Cole Garrett is one of the main dudes in LA. And so he's a guy I work with a lot. And so he would say, here's what's up. Here are pictures. Here's how we set up the show before.
Yeah.
So do it like this.
Yeah.
But yeah, sometimes you don't know. And sometimes like that show that you came to.
Right.
It's a weird layout.
It's
not a rectangle at all.
No.
You want it to be like this perfect room that fits exactly as many people as you have chairs.
Right.
But that can be the challenge of doing these pop-up shows, is that it's not always going to be like that.
Yeah.
And that show, actually, we did a show there before, and we had set it up in a different spot.
Yeah.
And so this was kind of the experimentation of maybe we do it like this, and it's fine. Because I remember last time, both times we did that show, it was a very rowdy audience.
Yeah?
Oh, yeah. No, the first one we had, there was like
same place?
Yeah, same place. A lady got too drunk and left.
Right in the middle, just stood up and walked out?
No, she was talking during the headliner set, and this dude just tore her apart.
No.
I mean, she kind of deserved it. And this is the scenario where like, her boyfriend and her other friend, she was part of like a bigger group. We're like, we're so sorry.
Yeah.
We're like, it's fine.
Everybody's
just
embarrassed.
Get her home.
Yeah.
Get her some water. Make her, she go throw up in the toilet or do what. Just get her out of here.
Hold her hair back.
We don't care. It's fine. And we're lucky that the headliner knew where to go with it and made it funny.
Yeah.
I mean, we trust our comics obviously to do that stuff.
Yeah.
But even then, sometimes it maybe comes off as mean or you never know.
Do you ever get stage fright?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, part of it too, especially with the hosting side, nobody's bringing me up. Nobody's going, all right, you guys ready to meet your host? There's no dude in a sound booth.
Right.
PA.
Right.
There's music playing, the lights are on, and it's my job to decide, okay, we're ready to go. The comic who's coming up right after me knows that they're doing that. I know they know how much time they're doing. I know what they want me to say to bring them up. It's time to turn the music off, turn the lights off, and me to walk on stage.
Yeah.
And when I was first hosting these shows, I realized that, and I would totally get nervous, especially because the crowd work was a very new thing for me.
Yeah.
And I think I've grown a lot in that way. But I would sit there and I'd be like, okay, because we'll do doors at 7:30 and show at 8. But we never start the show at 8. We'll start at like at least 5-10 minutes after 8.
Yeah.
And I'd sit there and I'm like, okay, it's 8:07. Everything's ready.
Yeah.
But I'd be nervous.
Yeah.
And I'd kind of go, well, I'll sit here for 5 minutes.
Yeah.
I'll go to the bathroom. I'll drink some water. I'll think about my jokes.
Yeah.
I'll look in the front rows. There's something going on over there and trying to like plan out the crowd work I was going to do.
Yeah.
So yeah, I definitely do sometimes right before. But not, and once I'm up there, it's easy.
Can you pick people out that you're the host, and you go, "Oh, this is going to be difficult. This one here is going to be tough."
Like specific people.
People, yeah. You just like they're just grumpy.
You don't know until you start talking to them.
Sure.
Because sometimes somebody will be sitting there like this, and if you point that out and you make that face, they might go, ah, and then you're like, okay, that's my friend now.
Yeah.
So you never really know.
Okay.
But people don't usually do that.
Yeah.
Because they went to the comedy show for a reason. They didn't have to.
Right.
And maybe they got dragged there, but
yeah.
Even then,
if
they really didn't want to be there, they could just leave.
What's coming up for you next, and how do people find you?
Totally.
Yeah.
So I mean, the next thing I'm writing all the time. I bought this crazy ass camera.
Yeah.
Just to start posting clips online on social media.
Video camera.
The video camera.
Got it.
And so I've been posting clips there a lot lately. So I will be in my bedroom editing my clips.
Just making your career go off.
I mean, that's kind of the idea. I mean, I'm diving hard into working with Don't Tell. I absolutely love it. It's, but like I was telling you before, I've been doing comedy about maybe 3 or 4 years, and Don't Tell is by far the biggest thing I've been able to be a part of so far.
Oh, yeah.
And I love every aspect of it. And they're kind of sending me out to find some new spots, like around Southern California, I think, to put on shows.
Got it.
So I will definitely be pursuing that and trying to just sort of spread all the cool stuff we're doing.
Yep.
And yeah, where can people find me? Instagram and TikTok at JT Tomlinson, there it is.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah, absolutely.
There you go.
All right. So before we go, I have these 5 words that I was going to call 5 fast words. And what's going to happen is I'm going to give you a word, and you are going to tell me the first thing that comes to mind. It could be just a word. You can run off on it, whatever.
Sweet.
But the first thing that happens when you hear this. Okay.
Right on me.
Punchline.
Well, there's a comedy club in San Francisco called Punchline that my friend just did a bunch of hosting stuff at. So that's the first thing that comes to mind.
Okay.
But that's not a good answer. I'm going to give you another one.
He's got another one.
Punchline. I mean, I feel like when I think about the word punchline, people used to use that word as like the holy grail. And I've started to realize that it's not like joke punch, set up punchline, set up punchline.
Yeah.
The best way I feel like to do comedy is just to have these what we call tags.
Yeah.
It's like you'd be talking about a thing, and a tag is just another little funny line you can throw in there.
Yeah.
And I feel like I've been working a lot, or I have worked a lot to try to find a really funny punchline. It doesn't have to be that.
Yeah.
It can just be me, like, you're in conversation, you're being funny. You're not building up toward this big thing. That would be fucking lunatic behavior.
Right.
But you're saying a bunch of funny shit right in a row, hopefully, if you're trying to be funny, if you are being funny.
Yes, yeah.
And that's what's natural.
Right.
And for me, that's the best way to do comedy. So I try to think of comedy as, especially if I'm writing, coming up with good tags.
Yeah, definitely.
So fuck punchlines.
Right.
But the club in San Francisco, book me.
I love that. All right, got the next one. Improvise.
Ooh. 2 things come to mind again. I'm just going to give you multiple.
Go with it.
The first thing is that I don't see a lot of good improv comedy. I just saw my friend Dan Black host a show called The Last Improv Show. So sorry, I hope it's okay that I'm plugging somebody else's stuff.
Of course.
I love that man.
Yeah.
But improvise, yeah, I mean, that's the whole job of a host is being able to think on your feet. And it's taken me a long time to be able to really trust myself to have that happen. When I first was starting with hosting with Don't Tell, I knew you had to do crowd work, and that would make me so nervous. And my game plan was like, all right, go up there, get the crowd work, and then pull out, and then go into the material. And now I'm like, okay, I can let it happen. I can let the whole show just ride on. I'm talking to a guy in the crowd. It's not even so funny right now, but I don't need to worry about saying the funny thing. It'll come. I trust myself.
Absolutely.
So
Yeah.
yeah.
Very cool. Next one I got up, wit.
Wit. Yeah, I think that these aren't supposed to be one-word answers.
They could be whatever you want them to be.
Because not.
I'm kind of setting you up to like where they have to have something. Like,
yeah, that's true. There's got to be an explanation.
Yeah.
I mean, wit. Yeah, it's important. You got to have. If somebody says you're witty, I think that's one of the highest compliments you can be paid as a comedian. Because it just, to me, there's sort of this connotation that like you're quick and you're fast.
Yeah.
And somebody can put something into you, and you as a comedy machine, you come right back at them.
Comedy machine.
Yeah.
I like
I mean,
that.
we all got,
Spit it out.
everybody's got the comedy machine inside of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, leads me to the next one, banter.
Banter. This has nothing to do with comedy. I see this a lot on dating apps. Girls will talk about like, oh, do we have good banter? It sounds almost British the way that I read it.
It is, yeah.
And it's like, how the fuck are we going to know this is a dating app? We're not going to know if we have good banter until at least the first date.
Right.
Maybe not even until after.
Right.
Dating apps are crazy. I hate dating apps. I also like them, but I hate them. Not good.
Not good.
Not good.
All around not good. All right, and the last one I've got for you is stand-up.
Stand-up just as a thing?
Could be whatever.
All right, this is my podcast now. Listen to me, America.
Go ahead.
Stand up. I mean, that for me personally, that's all I wanted to do. That's all I've wanted to do since the first time I did it.
Yeah.
And sometimes for me, I did this and I went up on stage for the first time and I was like, that's it.
Yeah.
This is it. This is whatever I have to do.
A lot of people don't get that.
No, I know, and I'm very lucky.
Yeah. It takes people a long time sometimes to figure out what they want to do.
Yeah, and also I realized too, like, because I'm sure there's other stuff that I'm probably just better at just in life, or would be if I had the training.
Yeah.
I don't know what, carpentry or some random shit.
Yeah.
But I also feel like it's rare that you find something that you're really passionate about.
Yeah.
That you also have even a inkling of, a talent at.
Right.
To where you have like one iota of encouragement or reason to keep going.
Right.
So I'm lucky that that I not only got the opportunity to do this, have been encouraged to do this. I love it more than anything in the world. And I feel myself getting better at it.
You're good at it. You're very good at it.
I appreciate it.
It's
a lot of fun.
Well, that's the show. This is JT Tomlinson, everybody. And check us out on YouTube. Smash the like button, subscribe. We're doing shows every week. We're going to have comedians just like him on the show. And again, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me, brother. I appreciate it.
Appreciate you.